What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Berry, myself, Scott McNally, and we are brought to you by you, the people of Patreon. Thank you guys very much for your support. We do have some Patreon questions today, and we are brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK for additional savings on high-quality, third-party tested supplements from a company that you can trust. And last but not least, we are brought to you by SupplementSource.ca for Canadians. Great deals that change week to week. We've got some good stuff. We're going to launch with a gear topic. Before we do, I wanted to ask you guys a question. I didn't tell them beforehand, by the way, audience. I had a question I wanted to ask you guys, and I want to ask the audience at home. So this, and we are not affiliated with either of these brands. This is the Bear Bells soft protein bar. This is the peanut butter caramel one. This is the Anna bar. Have you guys had either of these?
Do you
I don't eat
stack
protein
them,
bars.
or do you eat them one at a time? Because you stack the Anna bar on top of the, I didn't want to say it because I don't know who you got them from, and I don't want to.
I bought them. I bought them.
Okay, I'm with Andrew. I don't eat, and I don't let my clients eat them.
Yeah,
as soon as you have to
Listen.
shape them into a bar, you're putting in things.
Listen.
That don't belong there.
So here's the thing. Do you guys like candy?
Like what?
Do you like chocolate?
I don't until I start eating.
Until you start
eating
it.
Right.
So,
I mean, who doesn't
the
like
thing.
sweet tasting stuff in their mouth like sugar? Like everyone does, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but I just don't buy it.
Dusty introduced me to this one, the Anna bar. I can't remember who introduced me to this one. I was going to ask you, but I'll just ask the audience at home, what do you prefer, the Bear Bells or the Anna bar? I'm curious to know because I asked Instagram, and it was almost a 50-50. Anna bar won, but it was by a small margin. We would have had to do a revote or something to really find out.
Do you have clients eat protein bars, Scott?
God, no. No.
I mean, like it's got to be like, hey, you're at the airport, and the only thing is like Taco Bell and some other shitty fast food place, and there's a what is it called, a Bear Bell bar? There's one of those there. It's like, okay, go for that instead.
Yeah.
Because your food's spoiled and there's nothing to eat. And you're not going to be able to get to a clean restaurant or something for 5 hours.
Or if you're not on a fixed diet like me, and then I've got a cookie jar full of them upstairs, and I limit myself to one a day as a treat.
Yeah, but if you're not on a diet, and then eat a regular candy bar.
Yeah, eat a Snickers bar and then have a protein shake.
It's a snack, and I get the
M&Ms
extra protein, man. They're good. Dusty knows
okay.
exactly what I'm talking about. I want to hear what you guys have to say at home, too. So let me know which one you like.
I remember those big Metrex bars, the thick ones. Yeah, those were pretty good, I guess, back in the day. But I ate them, I knew it was a candy bar with some fake protein thrown.
Here's the thing, though. Like, that was in a whole other world. Like, these don't even, like, you wouldn't even know you were eating a protein bar, put it that way. Like, it's if like the Metrex bars were here, and then like these are like it's like a different universe, man. That truly
for taste, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and probably better quality protein too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's debatable, honestly.
I mean, know. That's what I think too. And everything that goes in it.
It's funny because I'll get Ron and Dusty on. This is a whole other side topic, but I'm going to go into it. I asked Ron and Dusty, like, what was your favorite, or imagine who would you want to work out with? And Ron and Dusty both had these really funny stories. And then I get on with Skip and Andrew, and they're like, nobody. Next. I'm like, I mean, from protein bars, guys, check these out. And you're like, no, next.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say this, maybe their points of view are skewed a little differently, maybe because genetically they could get away with a little bit more in terms of like remember
I hear
just
retired.
Ron, but
that's what I was thinking too. They kind of crossed the finish line. They can do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like Ron had to eat like 8,000 calories a day. So when he had a protein bar, that was a drop in the bucket in terms of his nutrition.
Right.
It wasn't like he was counting a meal as a protein bar. It was like, hey, eat your 8 ounces of chicken and your 2 cups of rice, and if you want to throw a protein bar on top of it because it tastes good, go for it.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my
We're
question to everybody at home.
I heard that we're not very funny. That's what I heard.
You guys are stick in the mud. I'm like, what's your favorite? What's your favorite seasoning? What's your favorite?
Condiment.
What's your favorite condiment? Salt.
Salt.
Next.
Scott was even like, "We got to say something different," because Andrew said salt. I'm like, "That's all I eat is salt." That's all I do. He's like, "No," he's thinking, "No, you don't. There's something in there. You're doing something."
Well, I think also, and I think Skip touched on it a second ago. They're past the finish line. We still see ourselves as in bodybuilding mode, so we still measure out our food. We still put the same amount of salt on every meal. We don't just eyeball it and go on to the. You know what I mean? There is more, and I'm not taking anything away from them because they both have great careers. I'm just saying that it's probably just a different mindset, and maybe we'll get there someday. You know?
Yeah.
I'd love to cross the finish line, but I'd be eating caramel M&Ms by the handful.
I never had those.
You put so many in your mouth, it's kind of like Skittles, that you chew them and then they turn to like sugar sand. Like everything else is gone except the granulated sugar, and it's just. I understand why people get addicted to it because it is a huge, huge kick to the brain. Like this is awesome. Like I can't stop eating these. These are crazy good. But I don't go hunt out candy. I'm not a.
Okay, wait. I got one for you guys. I got what that would probably. What's your favorite meal flavor or water additive flavor? Do you add stuff to water?
I do, but I just use Crystal Light.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite Crystal Light flavor?
They have there's an off brand. They don't. I don't think I never.
Still make Crystal Light. I did not know that. That's like a
really?
A throwback to me. Yeah, I thought Mio kind of took over the market.
Oh, I'm too cheap. It's more expensive for Mio.
I didn't know they still made it. No kidding.
They're right next to each other in the grocery store, but you don't do your shopping. So you.
Yeah, exactly true.
The orange
my
flavor.
Shopper didn't hit me up and go, "We're out of Mio. Do you want Crystal Light?"
I like the orange, and then. Like I said, guys, we're going to get to a gear topic real quick here. But I'm going to tell you, one time I didn't have enough pink lemonade to mix up a jug, and I didn't have enough regular lemonade to mix up a jug, so I combined the two. It was like there was synergy in that. It was like the flavor synergy. 1 + 1 = 3. I'm telling you. Pro tip.
So my 1 + 1 is I like Slurpees and slushies. You know, like the 7-Eleven drink, the sugar-free ones. So I make one every day with my Ninja blender. I take an element packet, like either the grapefruit or the strawberry, citrus, whatever, and then I add Skittle flavored Mio. Okay. Oh. And it's delightful. I'll just leave it at that.
I didn't know they had that.
Oh, dude, the Skittle flavor is I've gone through like 6 of these today.
You're kidding me? I never heard of it either.
Out. Yeah. I
did
Amazon. Not know that.
Amazon. I get all that stuff off Amazon because you can't find that stuff in the grocery stores usually.
Yeah, no, I never saw it there. All right. Anyway, we do have a gear topic, guys. So we got this comment. And it really is something we had talked about before. Let's see. Do I want to even put it up on the screen?
Put it up on the screen. Do it.
Well, it's part of it is because sometimes the putting things on the screen, like the AI reads it, and then we get demonetized.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, don't do it then.
All right. I'll just read it, and I'm going to read it in a voice. Test NPP and EQ. Recipe for an absolute disaster, an unmanageable size. Feeling like a wreck all the time. This guy in the middle always gives the worst advice ever.
I agree.
Oh, shit. And one more thing, too. Jake got us. Thank you, Jake. Like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll say that. Guys, if we've provided value to you today, which I don't think we have yet, we'd love to have you on, though. We're trying. So seriously, test, EQ, and NPP. We've talked about this cycle before. All 3 of us literally voted it as, like, our number 1 cycle, like for growth in our pasts, right?
I'm glad I'm not the only stupid one. Why did he single me out? Apparently, I'm the only one who gives horrible advice. Come on, all 3 of us agreed on it. Unmanageable sides. I don't want to laugh because I don't want to, be that disrespectful. But it is comical sometimes. The things that people say, it blows my. What part of that? Well, first it would be dose dependent if it was not manageable. Any one of those 3 compounds, not like we said anadrol and halotestin and check drops. It's to the point where sometimes no matter what you say, someone is out there just waiting to critique it. So of those 3 compounds, test clearly isn't the issue. EQ, you could argue that it pushes RBCs, and blood viscosity up.
True.
Like every compound that we use, that one just a little bit more. It gets way too much credit for it. In my opinion, it gets way too much credit because every compound builds RBCs. That's every single compound. And then NPP. What part of that is just so illogical and nonsensical? It just blows my mind.
I guess
wish
it would
we
have
could
been
have
nice.
these people on and debate it. I still say we should every now and then take one of these comments and invite someone on it. We'd have to entice
Jackpot
them.
777, if you want to join us, we'd be happy to talk to you about this topic.
Yes.
But we all 3 did say, and I'll tell you what, I discovered that in my own cycling. It's not like I was trying this with other people. I had tried test. I had tried test in EQ. I had tried test in NPP. And then I tried test in EQ. Honestly, my thought, I don't know how you guys came to it, but my thought was I did so well with growing in my off season with EQ that I thought to myself, the one thing I don't like is it feels like it takes forever to really punch. I definitely couldn't, like EQ, week 2, 3, I just didn't have the same punch as I would with other cycles. So I thought to myself, well, what if I added something in that was faster in the beginning? What if I threw in some NPP and, to be honest, some D-ball, and run that as everything built up? That's how I came to it. But I discovered, for me at least, at a higher dose EQ, higher dose test, and then a pretty modest NPP, I had probably my best results ever. I don't know how you guys came to that cycle.
Well, I think we've all heard and probably done iterations of test, EQ, and Deca in the past. But then I think the complaint there is that there are real side effects associated with using Deca, namely the water retention, the estrogen surge. And that's what we were trying to avoid by using something like NPP on a lower dose and a more frequent dosing schedule. So I feel like, building the base of a cycle, you're hitting all your pathways, with test and androlone and DH, everything, right? While mitigating as many of the side effects as you can. So I would actually argue it's probably, in terms of off-season, dosing, it's probably the safest, least side effect cycle you could probably run, right? I mean, unless you're saying, okay, I'm just going to run test and Anavar, I'm just going to run testosterone alone. Yeah. But if you're trying to stack multiple pathways for growth, I feel like the way we were talking about it, usually on we'll say like a 1 to 0.8 to 0.4 ratio of test, EQ to NPP. I feel like that's a very safe and competent advice cycle to give somebody. So I guess I would ask this person, and I always, whenever someone has like a weird name and then like 6 numbers after it, I usually automatically discount that person's comments as a troll, because 9 times out of 10 they are a troll. But I would ask them, like, what are these side effects that you're speaking of, or what has been your experience? You said worst cycle ever, massive side effects. Maybe list those out for us so we can go one by one, because maybe it wasn't actually the drugs you were using. Maybe there were other factors involved.
Where does that opinion come from? It comes from him, because it's unlikely that he's trained anywhere near the amount of clients that the 3 of us have. So that's what the absurdity is. It's just kind of funny. Okay, it didn't work for you. You know what? Okay, you felt like trash on it for whatever reason. It may not have been the compound. You know what? Maybe it was the compounds. Maybe you just don't deal with those compounds well. But the vast majority of people do. I think people lose track of the fact that we're not just sitting here going, well, this is what I like to do. And sometimes we do that. But we're talking not only about our personal experience, but the experience with hundreds and hundreds, arguably in the thousands, of people that we have trained over the years. And I know it's one of those things that you got to be careful when you say thousands, because people start doing the math. But you know what? I've been training people online for over 20 years.
Oh, easily thousands. Easily thousands.
I mean, I don't hesitate to say thousands. It may not be 20,000, but I'm sure there's a few thousand in there. So,
my goal here is to steer us away from the fact of the comment and steer us toward the education part of talking about the cycle, Skip. So
I know, but we did that. That's the thing. And it was still discounted. It does irritate me.
You like this cycle too, though, right?
Of course.
Obviously.
I think I was the one that initially said it, and you guys agreed with me. You're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. It's just kind of a go-to. It's like one of those cycles that, you know what, I'm not sure what I'm going to just run it. Run it, and if you don't respond well to it, look at other factors, because you're probably going to respond. The vast majority of people are going to respond well to that combination. Different dosage, different, maybe a slightly different ratio, but those three compounds are money. I don't know. I don't know what else to add to it.
I can ask you guys this. So Andrew, you said, man, I don't know if I'll say the same thing, because I feel like the cycle I'm running now is, to me at least, even better.
Well, because we were talking before, like, best cycle ever, right? And I think you formulate your opinion on your best cycle ever based off the state of mind or the state of physique you were in at that time. And me and Skip both joke because, when you're lean, whatever you're taking at that time, you're feeling pretty confident about it because you're seeing changes, week to week, day to day, even sometimes. Whereas in the off season, you're carrying 25 to 30 extra pounds of fat. You don't see those little changes. So you go by only how you feel or how you feel in the gym, like typically strength increases or, how your training's going. But at least when you're pretty lean, whatever cycle you're running at that time, as long as it's intelligently programmed, you can see your shoulders getting harder, week by week. Yeah. You can see your triceps start to take more shape and your arms to have, more separation, and you start to see the pec lines. So, and yeah, obviously that's, the effect of diet, cardio, et cetera. But you can get that lean without using those things, and you look vastly different than you do when you are using those PEDs. So, yeah, I think your opinion changes over time. It changes with your age. It changes with, maybe your opinions based off of health and your opinions based off your recent blood work. Yeah. There's just so many factors into how you determine what the best cycle is. But I still stand firmly that, if someone's like, hey, I want to start a cycle, a little bit more than testosterone, I've never done anything else before, I'm definitely going to recommend test DQ and NPP. Like I think that's a competent cycle to recommend to somebody, especially if they have, several years of training, they've done testosterone, they've done testing something else before. The next step up is, here's a big boy cycle. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. And if we are providing value to you today, let me encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell. We have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week. Yeah. All right. Well, we do have a bunch of other stuff, so we could just jump straight into it then. What was that question we had from Jake a little while ago? He said, I'll just throw it up on the screen. It says, a question, in your opinion, how impactful is doing cardio after your resistance work to muscle growth while in a cut/recomp?
It's impactful in the sense that it helps you get leaner and burn body fat because your glycogen stores are going to be lower. But I think he's coming from this. He's asking this question coming from an angle like, is it detrimental to your muscular growth? And I just don't think that's the case. Because all of us have had to do cardio after training in contest preps to get lean, and it's not like we watched our muscle whittle away, especially when you're using PEDs for prep. But, just to give a counter argument to what I'm saying, yeah, okay, you do cardio, you're increasing AMP kinase. AMP kinase will negate or shut down some of the effects of mTOR, which is, mammalian target of rapamycin, which is, the direct stimulator of muscle protein synthesis. So are you putting an e-brake on your car and trying to drive with it a little bit in terms of muscle growth, driving muscle growth? Sure. But you can still grow. You can still get leaner at the same time. That's what every contest prep is with our athletes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys hear people talk about not doing cardio on leg day nowadays? I feel like it's become, I do cardio every day except for leg day, as if it can't be done.
It can be done. I don't personally do it.
Have you never done it?
I don't want to say that I've never done it, but I am one of the few, and I say one of the few people, and I know this, because I've trained a lot of people. That's just a shitty, sarcastic, cheap shot. It's 777. I respond differently than most to cardio. It is a lot of times a bit of an obstacle or a hurdle when it comes to leg training. The first thing, even with the treadmill, the first thing that takes a hit is my leg training, and it doesn't take 3 or 4 weeks. half hour cardio, maybe 40 minutes. When I get to 40-minute sessions, I'd start to take a hit. Nothing else.
Your
would take
leg
a
training
hit.
does?
Yeah, my leg training does.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
and I think it's a glute thing. So I've tried to play around with, different types of cardio, but I always fall back, and I never used to. I never did the treadmill because my argument was it's so difficult to get the heart rate up and to maintain it, and I can't do a recumbent bike because my quads are on fire after 3 or 4 minutes. It's like holding a blowtorch on them. So I would do the elliptical or something like that. Stairs just destroy my glutes, destroy them.
So what do you do?
Well, I do the treadmill and I do it on an incline, but I have to do very, very low intensity cardio. And so I err on the side of doing more at lower intensity than I do at increasing the intensity or keeping my heart rate, really high. I usually only do my cardio at about a 110. Sometimes at the end of the week when I'm depleted, it's like down around 105, and I'm just like, holy, and I'll still be pouring down, sweat. It's not like I'm not working. And of course, I need to be clear. Sweat does not make you, sweating does not make you leaner. But the point is the work is still there. And, anytime, people should know this if they haven't seen this already. Once you load or you refeed or you have cheat meals or you take your calories up for a few days for high carbs, typically your heart rate will be higher at the same intensity than when you're depleted. It's just your body is more efficient when you're not holding any water. When you're, I say efficient.
I would say the other way.
Is hard.
I would say it's less efficient because
right.
So I mean, like the more cardio you do, the more efficient you become. Right? You're making more mitochondria. Your body becomes more efficient at metabolizing energy. So when you take break, that's why we take breaks from cardio. That's why we switch cardio modes up, whether from steady state to like a HIIT type cardio, or why we have to go from, like you're saying, 110 beats per minute for 30 minutes, why you have to bring it up to 40 minutes to get, a similar or slightly more of a caloric burn, or you got to increase that incline, another 2 points to get your heart rate going. But I want to also point out though that you're talking about doing your cardio at 110 beats per minute on the treadmill. And you've acknowledged from your experience of doing this for 800 years that like you do cardio at a slower rate than maybe some other coaches, or maybe you would even tell your clients to do, because you figured out what works for you as part of your bodybuilding program to maintain your leg strength to be able to go the distance. Right. So I think that's an important insight. You're saying, okay, my trade-off is I'm going to do cardio at a lower heart rate. I'm fine doing more minutes on the cardio versus trying to get my heart rate up to 130 and keeping it at 25 to 30 minutes, something like that. I think that's an important take home for people to pick up on.
Well, it's part of the reason that, remember, I was on this NEAT kick for the last few years because I literally would hashtag zero cardio because I didn't consider chill walks for an hour and 15 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half to get 12,000 steps. I was getting absurdly lean, and it wasn't getting in the way of my leg training at all. I actually thought about going back to it. The reason I haven't is I like the incline because, remember, I had that knee problem for so long that I'm still a little leery. It's in the back of my mind. So I don't like a level surface, and especially a hard surface like the road, to do my walks when I can have an incline that I know, yes, it transfers more work to my glutes, which is arguably the problem. It's not necessarily a quad issue. Here's an example how I knew it was glutes. And this is something that people can, it's kind of a takeaway for the listeners. If you're training legs and you get to like 7 or 8 reps and you feel like, I got 1 more, and you get like 5 more, but they're real slow and they're actually slower at the top, whereas you get like the top half of the rep versus coming out of the hole, a lot of times that's a glute issue or a glute fatigue issue versus a quad fatigue issue. And that's what I was running into. On the V squat, I had gotten to the point where I was barely getting 10 reps with 3 plates on each side. Okay. But I could switch over to a pendulum that was more quad dominant, and that there wasn't as much of a loss of strength. So I'm looking at it going, I mean, there was going to be no regular squatting. Anything like that. With leg presses, I had to play around with my position to make sure that those compound quad exercises were as quad dominant as possible. Because it just, and when I first noticed is when I was doing real stairs. I live in a high rise. This has been a few years, but I live in a high rise. Shortly after when I was rehabbing my knee, I started doing steps from the first floor to the 26th floor, and then I would get on the elevator and go down and do it again. And I built
You're kidding me.
That. No, and I would plant my heel. The cool thing with a lot of the stairs, I don't know if you know this, but in modern commercial, residential too, buildings, the stairs are closer together. They're not like stairs that would be in your house. They're not as high. Okay. So that in a fire or
unless they're a parking garage.
True. Okay. But when you need to escape through due to a fire or something else, you don't have people literally tripping and falling when they can't see. So it was more steps, but they weren't as long in a stride. But
it's still a floor.
My glutes used to be on fire. And I only did that once a week, and I did it as far away from my leg training as possible. But that's when I first noticed the impact. And I thought, oh man, I can't even do this once a week because it's eating up. It's just causing so much fatigue through my glutes. And then paying attention to the incline. I've had to bring the incline down for that reason as well. So there's a balance in there. And everybody has these individual nuanced issues that you need to be able to pay attention to the feedback from your body, whether it's diet, whether it's gear, whether it's training, and make those subtle changes because everybody's different.
Let me caveat that with everyone should pay attention to those nuanced issues, but because I get this a lot, like, oh, I'm getting really tired doing cardio. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like, I have you doing 2 45-minute sessions a day on 50 carbs. Like, you're supposed to feel tired. So being tired is not the is not the reason why you shouldn't be doing this stuff. You're talking about like musculoskeletal issues, whether it's wear and tear, something that's literally affecting. Like if you're doing stair climber and it always hits your lower back, and then you go to your leg day 2 days later, and you can't even do a leg press because you can't bring your knee down, right? Because you start to feel that one side, which I'm feeling right now. That's a reason that you should start adjusting your cardio or your mode of cardio. Versus like feeling fatigued, feeling low blood sugar. Like, yeah, that's the point. That's what we're trying to elicit here. That's the response we're after, And
your strength will take a hit in the gym. So there's a difference between it taking a hit and then just absolutely going in the toilet where all of a sudden you just can't get past like 7 or 8 reps with an absurdly low amount of weight. There's a big difference.
Yeah. One of the things I like to do because I do 25 minutes of elliptical every day, but then in the evenings I go outside and I get in the pool and I do either 5 or 10 minutes of like sprinting in place.
Oh, yeah.
And and it feels really good because A, you don't get hot because you're in cool water, right?
Yeah.
And B, it's like the impact, there's very little impact on your joints. So, and it's a great way to get my heart rate again. And I looked on my watch, and I think in like 5 minutes, by banging out as fast as I can, it gave me about 1,500 steps out of it. So it's like,
I think swimming is one of the best forms of cardio because it's full body. It's not just focused on your lower body like 95% of the cardio that we do. I think it's great. It's just not very practical.
Yeah, not everyone has pools or pool memberships but I remember in 2015, the only cardio I did was three or four 15-minute hit sessions of cardio in the pool, I mapped out, 10 to 15 seconds, going all out freestyle as hard and fast as I could. And of course, all the real swimmers were like, hey, buddy, do you want me to show you how to do that more efficiently so you're not just flailing? And I'd be like, no, I'm trying to burn as much calories as I can in these short 15-second bursts.
Without drowning.
Yeah. I mean, it's only waist high water, but I'd do the freestyle 15 seconds as hard and fast as I could. And then I'd walk the rest of the way. And then on the minute, I'd go back again and doing the same thing back and forth, 15 rounds of that. And the idea was, I don't want to be efficient with my swimming. I don't want to make this, I'm not trying to become Michael Phelps. I'm trying to burn as much calories with my locomotion as possible. And that's all I did for cardio that year. It was amazing. And honestly, people are like, well, didn't your shoulders get sore? No, my shoulders felt the best ever. Like, I think that movement through the water, and I feel like it saves your legs a good deal because you're distributing that force potential throughout your whole body versus just putting it on your lower body.
Yep, agree.
Yeah. I'll tell you this: I've never
Big
done
fan of swimming.
cardio or swimming for cardio, but as a kid, I did a lot of swimming. And there's one thing for sure: after I would swim, man, I would be freaking hungry. You're
tired and hungry.
You're
Yes.
tired and
Yes.
hungry. Yeah.
Yes.
One of the common questions we get asked by you guys is, what would you do differently with your bodybuilding if you could go back in time? Given all the experience and education I have today, there's a number of things that I would have done differently. One of them is that I would have started using collagen sooner. Collagen is one of the few supplements that will actually rebuild connective tissue. It took me tearing my supraspinatus in 2021 to get with the program. I use True Nutrition's hydrolyzed beef collagen. I get the unflavored version. I pay for it myself just like you guys do. I use 20 grams a day, mix it into my coffee. It's totally unflavored. You don't even taste it. Plus, I use 10 grams of their micronized creatine. Creatine has been shown to improve brain health, especially for the aging brain. I need that. And of course, we've always known about the muscle building effects. So this is my morning routine every day, and I'm encouraging you guys to do the same. Use our code THINK for savings. Plus, it's the only way for them to know that this advertising is being heard. Otherwise, they just think you're some random dude that clicked on an ad.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Hey, we got a bunch in the stream too here, guys.
I'll go for it.
What about this one real quick? Men's Physique pros. Are they high dose cycle users? And are they doing things like growth hormone and insulin in that division? Thanks, and appreciate the podcast.
They're doing everything that your open bodybuilders are. I mean, the difference is the look on show day, because I would say Men's Physique guys are among the driest of dry guys, and they look a little drier than they really are because they sit on their abs versus stretching their abs out in their front pose. So you really see those deep cuts in the abs every time they're facing the front, right? Whereas, a bodybuilder or a classic guy is typically arching and spreading out their abdominal wall to make the waist look smaller.
Right.
But in terms of PEDs and stuff, they don't have weight classes. I mean, the pros do have weight classes, but at the top amateur level, they're doing almost all of the same things that we are, or that, bodybuilders are doing, almost to the gram. All the top guys I know, I should say all the top guys that are on the, fairly normal genetic spectrum are doing the same things that all your other guys in the open or classic division are doing. GH, insulin, all that good stuff.
I think the biggest issue that I see, I got a guy that should be, and clearly we don't know who's going to show up, but we anticipate him getting a card this summer, whether this next show or the following show. But one of the things that I focus on with him and have for the years that I've been working with him is, and this is, I think, a Men's Physique approach that I use too, is I don't, not to force feed Men's Physique guys for size. I still stand by, I have for years, you guys know this, that the gut issue in bodybuilding to me is far more related to forcing food for growth than it is or has ever been with insulin or any specific compounds like GH or anything else. I understand we can get into the receptor argument. Someone's going to comment and break down the physiology of the receptors and everything in the intestine and everything. And I just want to let you know before you do that I'm well aware of that. To me, it's the growth, it's the force. It's what we started doing in the 90s that has contributed to not only the size increases, but also in the midsection increases. And I've said time and time again that I don't think there's any benefit to gaining 5 inches through your shoulders or your back and chest measurement if you're going to gain 4 in your midsection. It's still supposed to be an aesthetic game, a game of aesthetics and just an overall look or an overall package. And I am disappointed. I've been in this sport for 40 years. I'm disappointed in the open bodybuilding class. I'm so happy that there's classic now because I think that look is so much more appealing. And as long as those guys are careful to not force feed, I think that the Men's Physique guys and the classic bodybuilding guys, that's the look that I know I would love to have that look. But I've been in the game too long and I've force fed too long because I have mediocre genetics like the vast majority of people listening.
Well, keep in mind though, the classic do have most of the guys at the top level are like right at their weight cap.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of them eat fairly light in the off season. Like I know a lot of classic guys that they start eating more once they start prep and then start bringing it down as they get closer to the show than they do in the off season, because, you know, they get done a show, they almost have to maintain like 10 pounds above their stage weight. And then like 20 weeks out, maybe they get up to like 15, 20 pounds over their stage weight by increasing the food to give them to increase their metabolism, to then start the way down, the journey down to getting back in shape. So they're actually eating more for a lot of their preps than they are during their off seasons.
We have a question coming up about like your favorite moments as coaches, and this actually ties in for me because when Men's Physique first came out, that was about the time that I had just started kind of like really seeing myself as a coach, and like I didn't even like tell people, but people found out because I was coaching people, you know, that kind of thing. And I ended up having a ton of success with early Men's Physique guys. And I think a big part of it, what I attributed that to, was that a lot of guys were like, oh, well, I train differently because I'm in Men's Physique. And guys were like, oh, you know, we have to do things this way. We're not like bodybuilders. We do things differently. And my approach was to basically diet them just like I would a bodybuilder and get somebody like absolutely effing peeled just like a bodybuilder. And then because of that, because like guys didn't really get it at the time, and at that state level, my guys were literally like smoking everybody because nobody was coming in with that nasty, nasty bodybuilding conditioning. And once you saw that on stage, you're like, oh yeah, that guy wins. I don't care what he looks like. You know what I mean? State level, it's like if you have a decent waist and, you know, you've got some muscle and you're absolutely peeled, that's the guy who wins, you know? So I felt like I had that going for me. It is crazy though, how the genetics have found that division, because now, like, man, those guys are just so they're awe-striking. You know, they really are at that high level. Those pros, I mean, you put them in those board shorts and like Andrew, you said, they're crunching down. They're not even showing you everything they've gotten because it's kind of like pulled in and minimized. You know what I mean? They're not expanding and, you know,
Are you guys familiar with Kayak Pro, Carlos Delgado? He's always a top 5 Men's Physique Olympian, and for years we've all been trying to tell him, like, dude, you got to do Classic, because the guy is so muscular, and now that he's eating a little bit more, like he's going to move to Classic now. I saw some pictures of him the other day. If you see him on stage, like he's always been like my favorite Men's Physique athlete, because of the muscle and not only the muscle but the conditioning that he brings. But if you saw this guy in person, like right in front of you, you'd be like, that guy would win a heavyweight class at bodybuilding at nationals. You know what I mean? Like he's got legs, he's got everything, you know, and he's got a very small waist for his musculature.
What's his last name?
If you go to Kayak Pro, CAIEK, is that it? On Instagram.
Okay. I'll try to find him. I'm not on Instagram, but I'm just going to put that in.
Carlos Delgado.
Yep, I got him. Hold on a second. Okay. I'm going to see if we can pull something up here.
Yeah. Like he's from Brazil and he lives here in Orlando. So we see him every now and then at MI40 in Tampa. But I've known him for years. He's actually competed up in the Boston area.
Is this him?
Yeah, that's him, dude. What's he got, about 1 million? Yeah, 1 million followers.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, look at go back up. There's a picture of him next to Derek. Right, keep going, right there.
Oh yeah. Tell me that's a Men's Physique guy, and tell me that's men's bikini. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. People that talk shit about pro Men's Physique, like guys, like I'm sorry, it's great that you won your local state, you know, heavyweight class or whatever. You wouldn't hold a candle in most cases next to some of these top Men's Physique guys,
dude. Yeah, that is freaking incredible, man.
Yeah, there's not as much complaining about it now.
No, there isn't.
Because the class has changed. I mean, keep that picture up there for a second, because the legs are. Remember, when it started, you had beanpole legs. It was kind of like the division that if you have any type of problem with your legs, just go into Men's Physique. You can train your upper body, and now you can't do that. You better be filling out those shorts with a lot of size in the leg department.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a great look. If I had it to do all over again and was just starting, I would find that division incredibly appealing.
I still think the guys struggle trying to come up in the division nowadays because of they still get caught up in the thing of like you're too big for the division at the state level. Like if he showed up at a state level show, they're going to be like, oh, no, you need to be in bodybuilding. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll touch on that, though, because it all depends on which judging, like if you're getting judges that judge the Olympia and they judge the nationals and they judge the top shows in the world.
You're right.
They can pick out the physiques that are going to move on and do well at the next level in that division. Right. Whereas like a lot of times you'll hear the local judge who judges one show a year and they give advice to someone like this, like, oh, you're too big for the division. That's why we didn't give you the W. And it's like, but I'd walk through nationals and win my pro card and I'd be a top 5 Olympian with this physique, you know?
Right.
So I think like we've always had the benefit in the Northeast of being judged by like Steve, Tyler, you know, judges that are judging at the national level and judging at the Olympia level. Right. So I feel like when you go to shows like that versus a show in like, you know, Podunk, Idaho or something, no offense to Idaho, great state, you know, where they have one state show a year and that one judge, you know, dusts off his NPC judging shirt and he goes to the show to judge. He's not exposed to these physiques on a regular basis like some of these other judges are.
Yeah, that is a really valid point, and I agree with you on that. All right, we had a lot of stuff in the live stream. We can probably just jump through some of these things really quick. There was one about what was that one about? Hold on a second. I got my favorites here, so I try to hit the favorite button for everything that's a question. Is there really a downside to running Wistrol at 25 milligrams for 8 weeks at the end of a cut phase? I feel like it really helps keep my face looking drier, and I don't get back pumps. That's just me.
I mean, I guess what would the downside be that he's talking about? Like, does it have a major effect on your lipids or on your liver enzymes? I mean, 25 milligrams for 8 weeks it's not gonna put you in a coffin, you know?
Right.
So yeah, no, I think there's nothing wrong with that.
What do you guys think about?
I don't have anything to add to that. I agree. It's low dose.
Skip, what do you think about a sauna? Like implementing it regularly. Is there any benefit to that?
There probably could be. I'll go on record and say that I'm not a sauna guy. I'm not a plunge guy. I understand that there's, you know, some benefits on paper. I don't know how it would play. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it is incredibly beneficial. There are a lot of things, a lot of modalities that can add a 0.5%, for recovery and things like that. If we did all of them, there wouldn't be enough time in the day to train. So
that's true.
You know, the plunge thing I'm not big on. Saunas, you know, you had the argument, you know, with the hot tub. When we had a hot tub at the house in Colorado, it was so awesome. And all I kept coming across is information saying that, you know, okay, don't do it post-workout because of the increase in heat. And it's like, you know what? I slept like a rock. I would get into it with my wife for a half hour, then go to bed and just sleep like a baby. And I sleep like a baby anyway, but it was still different. It's the heat is exhausting. So maybe it would help for sleep and recovery. Those things, I don't know. I got a lot of things to do during the day other than try to do every single thing that could add, you know, a small benefit to recovery. So, yeah.
I mean, it does help though with it activates heat shock proteins, right, which help with insulin sensitivity. Like, I'll give you a quick example. I used to have a diabetic client that I trained in person, and you know, if her blood sugar was like in the 180s, you know, and she was lean before training, and we wanted to get that down a little bit, I'd have her go sit in the sauna for 5 to 10 minutes, and she'd come back in 10 minutes, and her blood sugar would be right back down to 120, which is kind of where we wanted it to start her workout.
No kidding.
So. Oh, yeah. No, because it doesn't work through the GLUT4 pathways. The heat shock proteins activate the GLUT. Man, it's been a while since I thought about this. A slightly different pathway than your normal insulin-mediated pathways. And, it can help lower your blood sugar considerably.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Didn't know that.
Is. Yeah, I've heard of it, but I didn't know. Like, I didn't hear any actual numbers. You know, kind of like you also hear, well, saunas will increase your growth hormone. But I'm thinking, like, well, is it going to increase it as much as if I take a couple units? Probably not. You know.
No. Like all those things about natural ways to increase your growth hormone. Let me just put this out there: they don't hold a candle to using even 3 units of real growth.
Even one, I bet.
Maybe even 1 IU, right? Yeah, because like, you know. And I'm not going to pick on natty guys or anything, but but like, and they should be looking for every advantage they can get naturally, but like doing the things like we're talking about, whether it's, fasting or, using the sauna or these other modalities, thinking that that's going to give you anything close to a growth hormone surge. And it's funny because you look at the research stuff and these people put these research studies that like 600% more growth hormone release. Well, if you're releasing 0.01 milligrams of growth hormone to begin with, you're only up to like 0.06 milligrams of growth hormone, which is a lot less than a couple units of growth hormone taken daily. So,
yeah. All right. How about this one? I'll throw in two. I've been using for about it must be at least a year now, red light sauna. I use near infrared and red light combined. I've got my light here, and I run it while I'm just sitting here at my desk. I literally sometimes I forget it, and it's just setting up right behind me here. There's a lot of stuff that it is beneficial for, including, how would I put it? I think it's something I would call, I can't remember what the term is, but like improving your mitochondrial function, basically. Yep. And so, like, if for people with certain conditions and stuff, it's been shown to be beneficial. And I've noticed a difference. I'm not going to say like, oh man, everybody who's dieting, you got to get a red light, or near red light penetrates deeper. But I can feel the difference when I use it. I don't use it every day, but especially through the winter, I use it. And then if it's a day where I'm like going to be stuck at my desk all day and I'm not going outside, I'll use it. And I can definitely feel the difference in like my energy and my mental clarity after I've used it. So I say go for it.
I thought it was big for collagen.
Red light is beneficial for the surface. I don't know if there's any, I haven't seen any like improvement to my skin or anything like that. But then the near red light is a lower frequency. And check this out. This was kind of the way it was explained to me, was that lower frequencies will permeate further through a solid object. And the example was, if you're sitting in your car or your house and somebody drives by and they have like their music blasting, you feel the bass. Like that's the first thing you're going to hear. And that's because bass is at a super low frequency. So it will travel through like brick walls and stuff. And that the near red light will travel further. So I'm a fan.
They're adding that to tanners now.
Are they really?
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's great because I've tanned for a long time and I don't want to look like that lady from Something About Mary.
There you go.
With the dog licking her face. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy.
All right. I know we have a guest coming up for the next episode. Guys, spoiler alert, we record 2 episodes at once. We'll see if we can get a few more things in here. What about, okay, there's the sauna question. Gamboni Law is always hanging with us. He says, what do you guys think about what is driving the movement toward larger cycles? Are people simply trying to make up for poor training and eating pie filling, candy, machine-based work, and more drugs?
I don't think that there is a movement driving toward larger cycles. I feel like milligram for milligram, it's very similar to things I was hearing 10 years ago and things that I've heard, or seen from, pros in the, late 90s, early 2000s. I don't think maybe you have younger guys that are jumping to higher cycles at an earlier rate than maybe they used to. But, we did see some stuff on the internet this week about someone saying that all pros are using 5 grams of gear minimum. Anyone that says they're not, it's a complete lie. Yeah, someone made this and he was so adamant about it because he heard it on Boston Lloyd's forum because Boston said it one time because that's what he ran, right? And
there
Boston
you go.
Clearly, it must be fact, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I would say most pros are, top pros are somewhere around, off season, pre-contest, everything added up, somewhere between 2 and 3 grams total, in terms of orals and injectables. There are, some caveats to that. I've seen some Milo cycles that are fairly outrageous.
There's going to be people that are, pushing it for sure. Right.
Yeah.
I think it probably varies per person, per even like period of their life. Right.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I think that we've all 3 of us been in positions where we're like, you know what, I'm going to push it this year. And then we'd fall into a category of being in a higher dose versus other times we're like, yeah, I'm going to pull back.
I think there's a direct relationship most times with the amount of gear someone uses and their level of genetic superiority. I think
Sure.
the average genetic person is far more prone to using more gear,
of course,
than the people who are genetically gifted. And I think that's what has always struck me. Is I always thought, not only would it be great to be genetically superior because you could tend to go further in the sport, but you'd have to do less gear and take less risks as well. I have my things with a specific Colorado native who was a Mr. Olympia for a long time, but I got to tell you, I'm pretty envious that he could run at that high of a level and dominate the sport and come out of the sport arguably more healthy than any other Olympia in a long time. He can move on and probably not have too many concerns or anything on his brain of going, yeah, I might have effed myself up pretty good.
Yeah.
I think everything runs in trends. That if you guys recall, a decade ago, the whole 3cc movement became a thing. And honestly, I mean, some of you guys might not have been around, but I remember Boston Lloyd coming out and going on to podcasts, back when there was only like a few. And he was like saying, hey, this is what I'm taking. And they were like outrageous doses. And everybody was like, oh my God. But then people started seeing like, oh, okay, so he can do that. Then I can do that too. And I think it became very popular to really push the doses up for a number of years. Whether he was responsible or not, I'm not saying. I do think he was part of it. But then,
well, let's not say whether he was responsible. Let's just state the obvious fact.
Okay.
He died incredibly young, knowing he had the issues that he did, and still continued to do it. Okay. And to each their own. It's his business. I've said this a million times. So if someone's going to come after me about it, kiss my ass, because people can do what they want to do. I want to be left alone to do what I want to do and not be judged, because it's not anybody's business. And I feel the same way about Boston or anybody else. But it still shouldn't be lost that he went out way too young, and I believe it was kidneys, right? It was kidney failure, essentially.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
So, could he have had issues with kidneys? Sure, of course. There could have been underlying issues. There could have been a hereditary component. But
but my understanding was that he knew he was in stage 4 kidney failure, and then continued at that point to push a hard cycle and other experimental compounds, which directly related to his demise.
Right. Yeah. Well, my point though is that things were really elevated. Maybe people weren't around at that time, like 2010, 2015, and I do feel like in the past 5 to 7 years, it might be that there's a newer crowd with the whole birth of like TRT becoming popular. I can't count how many people are saying, hey, I've never really done anything, but I'm on TRT. What can I add to that? TRT plus, things like that. And there's kind of these like dabbling cycles. And there's a whole crowd of people nowadays that they don't want to look like a big guy. They see that and they say, oh my God, that's what you look like. That means you're going to die in 2 years. You don't want to look like that. But I do want to know what I can get away with doing and just add a little bit to it. So I think that there's been a lot of that for the past 5 years at least. And now I do see there are more people that are pushing higher. That aside, competition's always been something else, and we're not paying attention to what YouTube people are. You know what I'm saying? Like what's really happening on social media. It's its own world, really.
Sure.
So I don't know. What else do we have here? Anything else we can jump into, guys, that you guys saw on the stream?
Do you think nandrolone is merely a Band-Aid and not a medication for musculoskeletal pain, or does it heal and revive connective tissue? I think if you look into the research, you see that there's conflicting evidence one way or the in both directions, that it actually inhibits. I remember seeing a study where a torn shoulder labrum, and it actually inhibited the recovery for. Yeah, I could actually pull that up and send it to you if you want to link it into the
please
note.
Do.
Yeah, I'll find it.
All right.
But then we've also seen other research where maybe due to increasing estrogen slightly, it does have I'll call it a padding effect to the joints. So it's hard to say really, especially when you have research done by competent medical professionals that are showing both both directions, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what studies usually do, though?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's
a lot
usually
of the time, sure.
it's usually there's usually two sides to everything. Clen is a fine example of that.
Sure.
It can regenerate heart tissue
But
in
then
people
also,
with congestive heart failure, and then
yeah.
it eats heart tissue. In another study, it eats heart tissue like Pac-Man eats dots. So it's one of the hangups that I've always had with studies. Not saying that studies are
sure.
not valid. It's just that if you there's a couple things you have to figure out who is paying for and who's doing the study and whether it's going to be biased or not.
Yeah.
And usually you have two sides to every study. So
another joint question: why does Wistrol dry out the joints? It decreases the amount of synovial fluid that your joints produce, which is like your lubricant, between the joint tissues. So that's why Wistrol.
It's like running your car on less oil.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we're out of time for this episode. We're recording these out of order, so you're going to have seen our guest before you've seen this. But we appreciate everybody tuning in, and of course, you can go to bodybuilding.com to reach out to Andrew for coaching. Teamskip.com. You can reach out to Skip over there. You can hit me up, McNallyDiets@gmail.com, and check out our awesome sponsors, advertisers, TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK, SupplementSource.ca for Canadians. Great deals that change week to week. And of course, thank you to everybody from Patreon. Guys, comment with questions for the next show. And Skip, word of the day?
Don't be facetious. People screw this word up all the time. Facetious, by definition, is treating a serious issue with deliberately inappropriate humor.
Okay.
It's very close to being irreverent. But I don't have time to get into that.
Guys, for another episode
go ahead.
of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, we'll see you soon. Sorry, our guest is here. See you guys.